What happens when a group of paranormal investigators start a conversation? You get Ghost of the Coast Paranormal, the podcast. Tales of the dead, the bizarre, and all things supernatural. Join us now as we discuss Ouija boards. Hi, and welcome back to Ghost of the Coast Paranormal, the podcast. I'm Erin.
I'm Linnea.
I'm Deborah.
And today we are discussing Ouija boards and other means of communicating with spirit. How y'all doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. And as you guys can see, those of you that are watching on YouTube, we are recording today from an undisclosed location. And we will actually be investigating this house behind us here as soon as we're done recording. So y'all be sure to head on over to our YouTube after watching the podcast and listening to the podcast, and let us know if we got anything on camera behind us here during our recording. And then you can maybe see a video or something on our YouTube from our investigation. We do have a special guest with us today. She's going to join us a little bit later in the episode and maybe share an experience that they had dealing with the paranormal. Let's get into it. Ouija boards. Are they a portal to hell? Or are they just simply a means of communication with the other side? First off, what do y'all think?
I think it's a portal to hell and I ain't touching it.
I don't.
I've never played with one. I don't have intentions on messing with one.
I think I have played with one when I was younger. Nothing happened, but at this age I wouldn't do it. But my father used to tell me about a story where him and his friends were using a Ouija board on a pool table. And I don't know if they were trying to provoke something, but either way, he said the board went flying off the pool table, and that was that, and he never touched one again.
Nope.
Oh,
no, thank you. No, thank you.
I'd have straightened out right there.
No, thank you.
Y'all would have thought I was the 8-ball banking.
So let's just get right into it. So the spiritualist movement began in the United States in the 19th century, shortly after the Civil War concluded. Did you guys know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, what sparked it was all the missing and deceased fathers, brothers, sons, wives, mothers, and daughters wanted to reach out to them and communicate with them during that time. So they were first introduced as a talking board by Elijah Bond and Charles Kerner, and began being manufactured in the 1890s up in Baltimore, Maryland. Funny enough, they were manufactured by a novelty company, Kennard Novelty Company, and that was released. So it was originally advertised as a talking board, and it was released the day before Halloween.
You say Kennard, and the first thing I think about is the cruise ship. I wonder if it's like the same family.
I have no idea. I've never heard of the
Kennard is like an upscale. It's like, one of those cruises where you go on for like a year at a time.
Oh, that's why we've never heard of it.
Yeah.
That's outside of our tax.
It's not Carnival.
That's like, here's our tax bracket. It's like,
yeah,
like leaps and bounds. So the talking board movement took off with spiritualist communities in which they were used in seances. And
excuse me, that's my neighbor's dog. You hear talking back there?
Yeah. And also this episode, it's very hot here in the South, and we chose the perfect day to go outside.
It's hot, the bugs are biting.
If you see us with a green can, we're spraying for skeeters.
Yep. We're spraying for skeeters, the state bird of South Carolina.
Absolutely.
So in the 1960s, the rights to the patent for the board were acquired by the Parker brothers. And according to toytales.ca, the rights were then transferred to Hasbro in 1991 as part of their acquisition for the company. And a little side note here, according to the box that the Ouija board comes in, it is appropriate for ages 8 and up.
Oh, wonderful.
So you got to be 21 to drink, but you can be 8 to summon a demon.
To open the
Hey,
portals of hell.
you got to be 18 to give your life for your country,
Right.
or run off and get married. But at 8, hey, you can.
Yeah, go for it. Don't. Just, well, you form your own opinions. So here's some specs about the Ouija board. I'm sure we've all seen one. Typically, they are 10.5 by 15.75 inches. Includes a printed alphabet, printed numbers 0 through 9, printed yes or no, and printed goodbye. And then there's always a planchette that goes with it, and it usually has a window in the center of it so that you can see what letter or number it lands on. And if y'all have anything to add to it, please just jump on in.
I'm getting educated.
Would you say second episode Black Eyed Kids were sponges?
Yes.
Educate me?
Yes.
According to SmithsonianMag.com, the idea behind the game was that 2 or more people would sit around the board, place their fingers on the planchette, and ask questions, and then watch as the planchette supposedly moved from letter to letter, spelling out answers on its own. Supposedly. And communicating with the dead was a very common practice. There are several notable people that have been known to participate or conduct seances with the spirit board or the talking board. Mary Todd Lincoln was one of them. Harry Houdini's wife, Bess. First Lady Jane Pierce. And of course, I think the one that we all know the most, Sarah Winchester. Side note, that's a bucket list hunt for us.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to go to the Winchester House. So Winchester House, if you're watching, hit us up. I do have some information on those seances as well.
Well, did you read anything on how it was named?
The Winchester House?
No, the Ouija board.
Sorry, I'm on another topic. So I've heard 2 stories. The first story about how it was named was that I believe it was, what is his name? The lawyer, which was Elijah Bond. Actually, excuse me. Charles Kerner's sister. And I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she was a practicing medium. And she actually, I guess, used the board in her practices. And then, so the brother invented the board. She used the board in her mediumship. And then was like, yep, that thing works. But here's a funny story about that. Apparently, the inventor was a snake oil salesman.
There you go.
So he was like a traveling, didn't have the best reputation, just a traveling salesman. And he came up with this idea, and his sister's like, yeah, I got you. And then supposedly it was named because she was wearing a locket and it had Ouija written on it. However, there's another story floating around that the creators of the board used the board itself and asked, what do you want to be called?
So now then I read the third story.
Oh, there's 3. Okay.
That was that the creator of the board was using the board and was trying to talk to a spirit. And that was just the first word that it said, so they named it that. They didn't ask it what it would be called. They were just trying to talk to it, and that was the first word.
Okay. Another thing that I've noticed from our other episodes, and y'all keep track of this now because you're going to think about it. Watch how many times throughout our episodes that I say, "Could you imagine?"
Wait, that should be a drinking game.
Could you imagine?
What?
Let us know if you see how many times I say, "Can you imagine?" or "Could you imagine?"
Keep up with it.
Keep up with it. Send us how many times it is because I'm sure it's a lot. But anyway, could you imagine sitting there one day and just all of a sudden like having this idea? I'm going to put some letters on a piece of wood. I'm going to paint the letters on or inscribe them in there on a piece of wood. I'm going to build a little planchette and we're going to market it as this board that can talk to the other side. My question for y'all is, do you think that this was just like a harebrained idea, or do you think they were being influenced by something on the other side?
Possibly a spirit guide.
Could be.
Spirit guide.
Well, I mean, it's something that's kind of grown to be everywhere. I just watched Ouija Japan. And in that version, they actually just make them on paper. So they just write Japanese kanjis on a piece of paper and they use like a coin.
Oh. Well, no, thank you. Yeah, we did kind of squirrel a little bit there, but so yeah, some of the most famous seances or Ouija board sessions to date is these all come from mentalfloss.com. Mental floss. Like floss for your
I could
brain.
use some mental flossing. I don't know. Probably need to blow to those bunnies. Ain't a lot there to floss.
First one up is Harry Houdini. So this says, quote, before magician and famous skeptic Harry Houdini died on Halloween in 1926, he said he would send word of the afterlife if there was one once he was gone. He and his wife Bess even devised a code word that only they knew. Though Bess held seances on the anniversary of his death for 10 years, hoping to hear his secret word, nothing ever happened. Still, a variety of magicians, Houdini enthusiasts, and spiritualists have continued the tradition ever since, even including a virtual seance in 2020.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Jane Pierce, First Lady Jane Pierce. This is, quote, even if you don't believe seances can produce spirit, you can't blame First Lady Jane Pierce for trying. She had already lost 2 young sons before her husband, Franklin Pierce, was even elected president in 1852. So this was prior to Civil War.
Mm-hmm. So does a seance always include?
Mm-hmm.
Does a seance always include a Ouija board?
I don't think it always has to. I don't think. Oh, Sarah Winchester used one, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. I think so, but no, they don't always have to include
it. No. So before Franklin Pierce was even elected president in 1852, she was particularly protective of Benny, their only surviving child. Unfortunately, 2 months before Franklin Pierce was inaugurated, the family was involved in a train derailment that took the 11-year-old's life. She even wrote her deceased son a letter not long afterwards asking him to appear to her so that she could apologize for failing him. To help him find his way, she hired the Fox sisters. The Fox sitters. The Fox sisters. Famous mediums who did much to popularize seances. There is no record as to what happened at the White House seance, but we do know Jane reported that Benny had appeared to her in her dreams shortly after. And then the last one I'm going to share is going to be Mary Todd Lincoln. Like Jane Pierce, Mary Todd Lincoln's interest in talking about the dead is pretty understandable. And also, like Pierce, Lincoln employed the Fox sisters to help her reach her loved one that was taken too soon, specifically her assassinated husband, so Abraham Lincoln. There are no reports as to whether it was satisfied with the result, but the Fox sisters later admitted that their method of communicating with the dead, rapping on tables and other objects, was created by cracking their joint and making noises with their feet.
I think I listened to a podcast about that.
So they admitted to being frauds.
Being frauds. Snake oil salesman. So now that we've talked a little bit about seances and Ouija boards, let's dive into the darker side of Ouija boards.
All right, what do you got?
All right. So first and foremost, like most things in the paranormal field, there is dark connotations that surround the Ouija board. And while I believe that everything in the paranormal field is about intention, we don't, Ghost of the Coast Paranormal does not and will not use Ouija boards in or around our investigations or at any time.
No.
That being said, did you guys know that there is apparently a specific demon associated with the Ouija board?
I did not.
For purposes of this episode, for purposes of personal beliefs
and safety,
I am not going to name, and I am not going to go into specifics about this particular demon. However, what I do have is some instances of this demonic entity.
Okay.
In 1951, there was a boy who was possessed by this entity after using a Ouija board. He was eventually exorcised after a violent process. 1972.
I wish it stated whether he was using it by himself. I think a lot of times when you hear problems, it's somebody was using it by themselves.
Yeah.
Also.
Well, we also say we don't ever investigate by ourselves. If you could have two or more in a location, that's more than two is better. We found.
For sure.
But yeah, never investigate by yourself. 1972 in Los Angeles, a mother used a Ouija board and found herself haunted by a dark entity that wanted to cause her and her family harm. 77 through 79, in Enfield, England, otherwise known as the Enfield poltergeist, a family was plagued by a malevolent force. In 2012, in Tombstone, Nevada, a group of soldiers were off duty and wanted to mess around with the Ouija board just for fun. Hello. They made contact with an alleged spirit who told them that he had died in Tombstone.
I'd rather step on Legos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
And on the way back, one of the men got possessed and almost killed the others in a car crash before the entity had left him and he regained consciousness. Most recent, 2019, a YouTuber attempted to contact the entity at 3 a.m., otherwise known as the witching hour, on his Ouija board. Made contact with an entity who said it was that entity. However, the YouTuber took it further and asked the spirit if there was a specific phone number to contact this entity, and the entity gave him a number. I'm not even going to read the number. And when the number was called, the lights went out in his room during the phone call, and poltergeist activity followed. When the YouTuber ended the call, the lights came back on.
Do you want to I want to call the number.
Wait till you get home to do it. Wait till you get home. You're grown. You can do what you want to, but here, no.
Um, uh, you probably already know this because you love movies, but there are several movies based around the Ouija board.
One of them being Ouija board.
Ouija board. All right, so now let's get into some experiences with the Ouija board. Y'all ready for that?
Sure.
Okay. You don't have a choice.
Who?
Oh, all right. So these come from BuzzFeed. This is called The Signal from Below. Quote, when I was in junior high, a friend and I sat on her grandparents' grave to mess around with a Ouija board. 5 minutes after we started playing with it, the ground began to sink underneath us. We ran out of there very quickly and haven't messed with it since. End quote. Number 2. Quote, a friend of mine had one when I was young, and I was very, a friend of mine had one when I was young, but I was very skeptical of it. I thought she was moving it whenever we asked certain questions, or whenever we asked questions. So I asked a question she would not know the answer to. I tried to contact my uncle who had passed away. I asked him how he was doing, and the board started to spell his wife's name. There's no way that my friend would have known about the name, never mind how to spell it.
Yep, I read that story too.
Yeah. Story number 3. My team had a sleepover at our gym, and we played with a Ouija board. Nothing too eventful happened until the board spelled out thirst, fire, and help. We closed out the board. When we went back to school a few days later, we asked the athletic director whose office was in the gym if he knew the history of the gym. He told us the gym had burned down once long ago and a man had died in the fire.
Well, so you just said something interesting there that we've not talked about yet, but he said close out the board. And they
Always.
do say that that's where part of this problem comes from, or
people not closing it out,
taking their hands off and then not knowing that
Yeah.
they're supposed to close it out.
Don't start nothing you can't finish, because if you don't close out the board, you're leaving that doorway wide open.
Hey, Clint Eastwood said, "Be man enough to know when to back away."
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I bought a black
Well,
obsidian sphere.
Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. What were you saying?
I bought a black obsidian sphere, but people do use those for mirror scrying, which is something different. But the same, you're opening a portal.
Different way of
And they said when you have the crystal ball or a black obsidian ball that you need to actually cover it when you're not using it so that you don't have an open portal sit in.
Wow.
The shared dream. Quote, my buddy and I found a Ouija board at my girlfriend's house. We were really, really bored, so we went to this graveyard by my house to see if it would actually work. As suspected, nothing happened. We brought the board back into my house and didn't think anything of it. The next day, strange things began happening. Out of nowhere, my friend started having sleep paralysis every time he spent the night at my house, despite having never had it before. The first time he saw a tall woman with long black hair standing in the corner of the room facing the wall. The next time he was asleep on the couch and he saw the same woman standing at my door looking directly into my room. This next one actually talks about the Ouija board demon. A few months ago, my friend brought over her Ouija board. There were about 5 of us at the sleepover, and when we began using the board, we met Joe. After an hour of speaking with Joe, one girl asked, "Joe, are you a bad spirit?" Joe spelled no. Then he spelled out him, Him. We asked what he was talking about, and he spelled out, "He's coming." Then began to spell out the name of that entity that we're not mentioning. The next morning we tried again, this time speaking to someone claiming to be Joe's wife. We asked her, "Is Joe a bad spirit?" She quickly responded, "Yes."
So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the difference between using a Ouija board and using a spirit box?
To be honest, I think it all comes back to intent. There's so much. It's almost like a Ouija board was birthed in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost kind of stigma at this point.
Yeah, at this point, it's all It was birthed in this darkness, and now I think it's all about intent. But because of that dark connotation that's behind it, I will not use one.
Right.
I won't even touch one. I don't even go down that aisle in the
And you
in the
don't
store.
feel that with some of the other forms of communication that we use?
I don't. Only because I know our intentions in it.
Right.
I know our beliefs in it and our team guidelines, and I know that we are not seeking this out. While we know and we understand that there might be times that we come up against something that's darker, but we are also not, if we do come up against something that's darker, we're not going to go and be like, "You know what? F you, blah, blah, blah." We're going to put what we're doing down and nope, we're done.
Yeah.
Do you have a way that you're closing out your conversations to make sure that there's no open?
Oh, I very sternly say, you do not have permission to come with me. And you have to. I mean, you have to, for your safety, you have to set those boundaries.
Right. Absolutely.
But we also do, we have I guess it's a closing ritual after each investigation. We very opening, yeah. We very sternly say, "You don't have permission," and each of us individually say that. And then we sage, we do Reiki, and typically when Chris is there, Chris does a blessing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a closing ritual that we go through each time.
Well, and we've even been saging the equipment.
Yep, saging the equipment. Crystals, we got protection crystals, and everything like that. So we really, and I'm not saying that it's not going to happen eventually, because I'm sure one investigation we're going to go into something and it's going to be what we don't expect.
Right.
But as founder, I will, and I've always said this, I will never knowingly send us into somewhere that has known demonic activity.
And we appreciate that.
I appreciate it too.
Very much.
But I will never knowingly send us into something that has.
Well, and I think we all have enough common sense about us now.
And our and our intuitions are very strong too.
Right. But if we go somewhere and we just get an overall really bad, not heavy, but a really bad feeling, I don't think any of us would have an issue saying, "Hey, I can't do it."
Well, that's like at the in Lake City, when we were in that one area and we started walking over, and you're like, "Nope, we got to get out." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all about intention. It's all about, and I think we mentioned this last week, maybe, but if you're putting positive out, you're going to get positive back. If you're putting negative out, you're going to get negative back.
Well, we always let them know, that we're coming with pure good intentions.
Absolutely.
We mean no harm.
Right. And I mean, that's our number one rule was well, I don't think it's not our number one rule, but it's on the list of guidelines. But be respectful, not only to the property and property owner, but to spirit themselves, and our goal has always been not to go in while getting stuff, finding evidence is so awesome and it's really exciting when we do.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not our number one goal. Like, our number one goal is to research and learn more about what happens next, and also break that barrier between, paranormal is still very much stigmatized, and as I said, there's dark connotations surrounding it. And
there's a lot of souls that they're like stuck in a loop or a warp. They're stuck,
right,
and they can't move on.
Right. Yeah.
And we do talk to them and ask them, do they see a light? Do they see that doorway? And we're there to help them go through it.
Yeah, and we've done that.
Yes, we have.
And that was the craziest thing, I think, to experience that, because we did it in Nichols. And we had asked, we were doing an Estes session, and I had asked if they saw a light, and I think we did it at the Opera House too.
I had to leave early.
Yeah, because that first exorcism, or that first baptism world. But yeah, we ask, do you see? Because we want to know, we want to know these things for our own personal knowledge. But we've asked if they see a light, and most of the times, like I think in Nichols, it was, yeah, I saw it, but they didn't want to go at that point. And then it was a man and a woman in the room at the time. The man didn't want to go, but the woman did, and she actually said thank you.
Yeah.
And you could feel her leave. So that was very, very interesting. But yeah, I mean, our goal is to get knowledge, educate, and tell stories of the past, so that these people are not forgotten. And I think I touched on this last week too. The human race sucks at sharing stories, and it used to not be like that, but it is now. But
it's all on cell phone now.
Right. Everybody's got a phone.
Have you ever saw like a handmade one?
Nope.
No.
I've never seen one outside of a box.
Oh, no?
I have, but no. All right. So after discussing Ouija boards and discussing some experiences, what do you think now? Helpful communication tool or doorway to the darker side?
Doorway to hell. I'm all about it.
Doorway to hell, stairway to heaven?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. Like I said, I have used one when I was little, and I think everybody was just pushing it, so it made it not an intimidating thing for me, because I just saw it as a toy. I think if I saw like a real deal board, because like Chris says that she's had them or seen them, right?
I think she used to use them as a kid.
If I saw like a real one, that would scare me. But I think I just the name brand of a toy
from Hasbro,
in a plastic cheap little piece that I know I've personally probably pushed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still not going to open one up in my house or anything.
Well, that's the thing too. Used to, it was wood, and the planchette was plastic.
Right.
Well, now the board itself is cardboard, and the planchette is also cardboard.
Oh, it's cardboard now? It's not even plastic.
Well, you got to be able to burn it.
Plastic melts.
Plastic does melt. But
and then I was confused on reading something too. So are you looking for the letter in the plastic, or are you looking to where it's pointing?
See, I was always confused about that too because it's a teardrop shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I reckon you're looking at the letter.
Inside, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But then I was watching something, and it looked like they were pointing to it, and I was like, huh. Now I don't even know if I had it right.
Yeah, it's inside. I was like, who is talking?
I'm
like, I'm hearing a ghost myself right now. All right. So as we mentioned earlier, everything in the paranormal field is all about intention. And that intention, the intention that you put out, can influence the communication that you receive. So we try and approach everything. We do approach everything in light and love and positivity. And as I stated probably a couple times, we do not and will not use Ouija boards, just so everybody knows. We also don't seek out negative energy. When we enter locations, we enter with the utmost respect. And so yeah, let's move on to a little bit lighter, and talk about some of the tools that we do use.
Hmm?
So
Like, I don't know. You got another hour? We've built quite a
we
collection.
do. We have quite the collection. So one of the things that we use is Spirit Box, SB7, SB11, the Microcom. Those are all Spirit Boxes. Essentially, what that is, it is a radio that scans really, really rapidly. You can scan AM, FM. With the SB11, you can scan dually, so AM, FM at the same time. You can also scan forwards or backwards. And the theory behind it, and we've had a lot of luck with it, especially during the Estes method, and I'll touch on that in just a second. But the theory behind it is, as it's scanning so rapidly, so all you hear is just a and the theory is that if you hear a voice come out, that is a spirit voice communicating with you. Now, sometimes when we're scanning rapidly, you will hear radio stations, and you'll be able to pick up the difference between a radio station and a spirit voice.
What if it's a pizza order?
Or a pizza order.
That's the strangest.
That was the strangest thing, and it happened over several minutes. We were doing an investigation back in April. Yeah. Back in April, we were doing an investigation at a retail store here at the beach, and we were doing an Estes method, and we do a lot of Estes sessions. And essentially what that is we're cutting off of one person in the group is cutting off their senses. So they have blindfold on, they have, I almost said hearing aids. Well, headphones. They have headphones on, and the headphones are plugged into the spirit box. So all you hear is that constant radio sweeping in your ears. And so it really heightens your hearing. And then we had a spirit come through with a pizza order, and it went for like a good 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good 5 minutes. And they wanted, like, I don't even remember, because half the time I don't remember what I say.
Right.
But they wanted pizza on pizza on pizza.
It was more than a Supreme.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is there was a pizza there.
Yeah.
Oh, they had pizza there.
Yeah, they had pizza there.
Oh, wow.
We didn't know that at the time. They went to giggling.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's when they told us that they had pizza in the back room.
So, going back to the Estes method. So you have your blindfolds on, your earphones on. So the person that's got those things on cannot hear the questions that are being asked. So typically another member of the team will ask these questions, and Spirit will have the opportunity to answer them. And another really good one we had was at an undisclosed location. The Bourbon. And
that one's my favorite now.
That's my favorite.
Hands
hilarious.
down. Hands down.
I mean,
she was adamant
I
that
mean,
she wanted bourbon.
open it, pour it. Is that clean? I mean, it
Yeah,
was.
that's
If y'all have,
specific bourbon.
yeah, if y'all have not seen that video, it's over on our YouTube. Make sure you go check it out because it's like 12 minutes long.
Is there a name on it for them to look?
There is, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But it's up there. But yeah, y'all go check it out because it is
Hilarious.
hilarious, but so spot on and so direct.
Mhm.
You could see the staff was like truly amazed.
Yes,
Like, they didn't believe
yeah.
the responses we were getting.
All right. So other methods of communication that we use is dowsing rods. Do you want to talk about the dowsing rods a little bit?
Sure. I'm fascinated by them. I mean, it's a direct, instantaneous response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're brass or copper. Copper. Thank you. And you just hold them in your hands, and they sit inside of a little sleeve that's on the handle of it, so you can't control that. It does it itself. You ask yes or no questions. If an answer is yes, the rods will cross over like this in the middle. If the answer is no, they will fold out this way. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I like them because, like I said, it's an instant thing.
And it's weird because you can actually feel the energy controlling it. And like, it's such a weird sensation because you can feel it being pulled in either direction.
Yes. The first time I used them and I got a reaction, I was just like, oh, they really do work. Because I was kind of skeptical to start with. I didn't realize that they had the rods were inside of the handle. Mm-hmm. And that they could move like that. So yeah, they're exciting to me.
Yeah, I like them. You want to talk about cat balls? Cat balls, they light up.
The only person who doesn't have cat balls. But what makes them light up? What do you think?
Motion.
Mm-hmm.
It's motion.
Do you think they're actually touching them or just going by them?
Well, they have to. I mean, they would have to touch if they're motion.
They have their to
movement.
Move.
Yeah.
Well, they could just be going past them. I'm saying, do you think they're physically trying to touch them?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they light up. You know, the theory is there are these little cat balls that cats play with, but when they move them, they light up. When they roll, they light up. So, and we've had a lot of luck with those.
Yeah, we do.
And then we have a lot of tools that we use.
And if you're going to talk about the cat balls, you can mention mag lights.
Mag lights.
They're kind of cool now.
And then one thing that we do things a little bit different than other teams, I think, do. Going the week leading up to an investigation, we typically will do a meditation. And sorry, I just saw somebody out the corner of my eye behind me. All right. We're investigating soon, so I just saw something out of the corner of my eye right here. But going into our investigations the week of, we typically will each individually do some sort of meditation or automatic writing session where we will just call out to God, spirit, universe, our guides, whoever, and we will ask them to kind of show us what we can expect going into an investigation. 95% of the time, I think we are accurate.
That's one of the cool things.
Yeah,
and watching.
The really cool thing is like Deborah might have something, but it's not like a complete. There's a lady there with blue pants. It might just be lady, and then I might get lady with blue pants, and then you might get lady with blue pants with glasses. Right. Like, it just always when we bring them together, they're all
They
correlate.
correspond.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that covered the majority of our devices that we use. Well, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that yet because we haven't used it yet. But go for it.
We have a new toy that we're going to be using tonight. This is called an Envoy. It has 3 different sensors. One is for EMF, one is for temperature, and one is for kind of like tap. So that's EMF. Well, you can't see what. EMF, temperature, and tap. And then they actually have little sensors, so you can make them more sensitive
Oh, nice.
or less sensitive. It has... Turn it on so you guys can see it.
And we'll show you on the video. We'll show them up close.
Yeah.
On the video, and so it'll be in this podcast episode. Blank face, the face with the single line as a smile. There. It'll be there.
There's a little button right here that can kind of make it go slower or faster. Okay. We can turn from alphabet to yes or no answers. Real fast. To numbers.
So,
to
like,
emojis.
For example, go back to numbers.
Okay.
So if we said, if we're calling out to spirit right now, and we said, how many spirits are here with us at this moment? In theory, it would drop a number.
Well, it doesn't have to be a fast thing.
If I see that number pop up,
oh, I know. That's what I was looking for.
And there may actually be too many electronics around us right now.
Well, I mean, and that's the cool thing about new toys is it takes a while to get used to them and learning exactly how they work and stuff like that. But we'll definitely be using that one tonight.
Twice now. Something in this thing, there's like a static sound that's going through just this one side. It's happened twice now. You hear it too?
I heard it. Another device that we have, we have a new, it's called a Zoom. And,
oh, Jesus.
Sorry.
Gator.
Look, we will do ghosts all day long, but we do not do bugs. But we have what's called a Zoom. It's a real-time voice recorder. So basically, we could be having a normal conversation, and in real time you can hear a spirit voice. So we're gonna use that tonight as well. All right, let's move on. So now it is time to introduce our special guest. This is Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Hi guys.
How's it going? Doing all right this evening?
Other than a few bug bites, I'm great.
So Kim is a new potential team member for Ghosts of the Coast Paranormal, and so she is out tonight. She's got possibly going to share a really cool story, or well, not really cool, but a paranormal story with us. But we're going to ask you a couple questions first off. Well,
okay.
So what got you interested in the paranormal?
I've always been really interested in it, and I guess you could say personal experience from a kid up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had several personal experiences. And while y'all were talking about the Ouija board, I actually had a personal experience with the Ouija board. I played with one as a kid. We did. And the whole closing the portable thing, we didn't do. We just up and left it. We were one of those people that just up and left.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened?
We were on my grandma's sidewalk, actually, in front of my grandma's house. And it was just some kids from the neighborhood. I don't even remember where we got it. I think it was in a box of stuff. My mom and them had been to the Sandy Bluff sale
Oh wow.
And got it, and we were just playing with it, as kids. And I remember some neighborhood kids, and we were sitting around we were on my grandma, like I said, the sidewalk, and we were sitting there, and we had asked it a question. I don't even remember what the question was. I think my Uncle Tommy had recently passed away, and we had asked the question. We were just, like I said, being kids, and I thought, I was skeptical. I thought it was one of my friends moving it, and that they swore they wasn't. I knew I wasn't, but there was no wind blowing, but just abruptly out of nowhere, my grandma's screen door, it didn't like swing wide open or anything, but my grandma's door opened.
Oh wow.
That it was the regular screen doors on the house back then.
Right.
But my grandma's door opened enough for like a person to come in or go out, and shut back by itself. And I just remember all of us looking at it, and everybody ran all over each other.
Yeah.
Where's Grandma?
No, my grandma was in the kitchen cooking.
She was in the kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, nobody came out the door.
And it just...
Yeah, I just remember it went, and I mean, you could logically explain it as a breeze if the wind would have been blowing or something. I just remember it was late in the afternoon, and I remember we ran all over each other, and we told my grandma about it, and I remember telling my grandma saying, "I told y'all about playing with the devil's work."
The devil's work.
And what happened to the board?
Stayed on that sidewalk.
I was fixing to say, I have no idea. I don't even remember going back to clean it up, honestly. Yeah. I just remember we ran all over each other, just trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, that would... Nope. No, thank you.
And
I'm not that friend. Just to let you know, I'm not that friend.
No, my mom bought another one. This was way later in life. I actually was grown and had children. Sandy Bluff auction. Same thing.
Stay away from there.
And her cousin was with her, and her husband was with them, and he fussed the whole time, telling them, that thing's not riding home in the vehicle with me. And my mama laughed at him and would poke fun at him. Y'all, this is the honest truth. When they got home and they pulled up, when my mom got out of the back of the Blazer, she stepped in a hole and broke her ankle.
Oh.
I kid you not. Probably had nothing to do with it, but Mr. Dale never let her live it down. He told her if she hadn't brought that Ouija board home, she wouldn't have broke her ankle.
Nope.
Yep.
No, thank you. So I know investigating and everything is very new to you still, but is there a tool or device that we've used thus far that you are interested in?
The Estes session is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite too. I think that's everybody's. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the Estes session.
We get the most out of it, I feel.
I get the most out of it, but it's also a very unbiased experiment because you have one person that cannot hear any questions that are being asked, can't hear or see or smell anything around them.
Well, a lot of times we'll go into these places kind of blindly without the backstory until later. So that we're not.
Definitely, because we try and go in as unbiased as possible and not swayed. So yeah, I think that's just hands down is definitely one of my favorite. So how did you feel about today's topic?
Would you play with them again?
No, ma'am. Absolutely not. No, ma'am. I did learn some stuff. Though, and I have learned a lot since joining the group.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited because I keep I'm learning more and I'm getting a better understanding. But when Deborah first told me about it, I was like, you go ahead. And then she explained the part that, you all will definitely not mess with anything heavy. And And you go in and love and light. I said, well, I'm all about that. I can do
Yeah.
love and light.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was definitely relieved to find that out.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So you actually had a terrible experience one time. Would you like to share that with us?
I did. It was actually it was actually at my home. Um, I had a dream, and it was actually on one of your other topics, the black-eyed kids. But now mine wasn't. I didn't experience them in the physical. I guess while I was awake, you would say. I had a dream, and I'd been having this reoccurrent dream about people on the beach where they would have a bonfire, and they wore these what do you call them? The blacks,
Cloaks.
the cloaks.
Yeah.
Yes, the black cloaks. And anyway, it was like after they had their meeting or whatever, everybody would disperse and go their own way. Well, I was dreaming about it, but I myself was there, and I could see it. You know how you'll have a dream and you can see yourself in the dream. Well, there was this little toddler kid, and he walked away from everybody, but he was going towards the water. So when I put my hand on his little shoulder to turn him around, when he turned around and looked at me, there was, I don't know how to explain it. There was nothing but just just black pits in his eyes. And he immediately, it's like I went flat of my back, and he was over me, and I could see the vapor leaving. It was like my breath was leaving me, and he was sucking it out. I was apparently was struggling in my sleep, and when my husband woke me up, I was washed down in sweat, and I was gasping for breath.
Wow.
I really believe. I honestly believe if my husband hadn't woke me up, I'd choked to death in my sleep. Is what I felt like.
That's terrifying. I mean,
that was horrible. That was a horrible experience.
So, do you think it was like? Do you think it was a black-eyed kid, or do you think it was the old hag posing as a child? That's what they're called, right? The old hag.
Could have been.
Yeah.
So what's the old hag?
So the old hag, and Chris will probably. I think Chris might want to talk about this too.
It's from the Gullah Geechee.
Yeah, it's basically this. It's a witch, like a sea witch, basically. Yeah. Her goal is to steal souls.
Okay.
So the theory is when we have sleep paralysis, the hag is trying to steal our soul in our sleep.
Is she known to come appearing like something else?
She's known to basically jump on top of you in your sleep and
pull your breath out,
suck your soul out, suck your breath out.
Well, lovely.
Yeah.
See, that's a new learning thing for me.
Yeah.
I didn't. So
I've never heard though if she manifests as something different.
See, because I was wondering with the black-eyed kid thing, it's that whole you're supposed to invite them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has to be something posing.
And your dreams are subconscious, so you can't really control them.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, we'll have to look up and see if black-eyed kids actually can manifest. Yeah, manifest in your dreams.
I'm wondering, once you invite them in, though, that might be part of it. You've invited them into not just your home.
Have you ever invited a black-eyed kid into your house?
No, I have not. But we actually, we had such an experience that we actually had a preacher come to our house, and we had to. My husband and I were heavily involved in church at the time, and I feel like it was attacking my daughter. I really do.
Really?
Like with a spirit of fear. It was some sort of demonic spirit, I feel like, was attacking my daughter with a spirit of fear or something. We were on the way home from church one night. This is the most horrific, most terrible experience I've ever had. I will never, ever forget it. I don't ever want to go through anything like it again.
Yeah.
we were on our way home from church one night. My daughter, she didn't feel like going, had a headache or whatever, and she was old enough to stay home by herself because my mom lives directly behind us. So we had stopped by Food Line. My daughter called and wanted to know where we were at, and we said we'd stopped by to get some milk and stuff. And she said the power just went out. And I said, well, go to Mimi's, we'll be right there. Well, when we got home, the power in my house is the only power on the block anywhere that went out. The transformer had blowed a fuse just for my house. So when we got there, Ori Electric was out there and everything already, so they changed it and the power come back on and everything. Well, my daughter come back to the house. We were there. You can the difference, of course, how you can feel if it's a negative or a heavy energy. I could feel it. Something just wasn't right.
Right.
So my husband called the preacher, and it had been slightly sleeting, some snow flurries. This was in the wintertime. And our preacher comes over, and so he's talking to my husband, and he told my husband, he said, he called him brother and he said, let's have prayer. And he brought the anointing oil. He said, we'll go from room to room and anoint, all the windows and doors and everything. Well, there's this one room, it's where my tanning bed's at, and we call it the jump room. And so they started to go into that room, and my preacher stopped and he backed up a little bit and he told my husband, and he said, this is where you need to gird up, brother. And he said, whatever it is, he said, I can feel it. It's in this room. And I didn't know my preacher spoke in tongues. Never heard him. He had been our preacher. He had been our preacher at that church for 8 years. Never had I heard him speak in tongues. Our preacher, I could hear him speaking in tongues when he went. I mean, she wasn't talking about, but when he went in that room, I heard him. Well, I had both my youngins by the hand, and I was on my knees praying, and I was praying just as hard as I could pray. You could hear it coming down my hall, and you could feel it. It was just like a mighty rushing wind, and you could hear the vibration of the wind when it came through, and you could feel the coldness. It felt like an ice cold breeze, and I heard it when it went out my back door. And the more it would come, the tighter I would hold my children and squeeze them, and the harder I would pray. And that was a traumatic experience.
Oh, I'm sure.
I would never ever
Had
want
you
to go
heard
through
of this preacher doing anything like this before, or was this something new to him?
No, it was not new to him, but I did not know that. He had been through experiences before where he was very familiar with it, and he had actually cast it out, been in situations where he had been with a team of other preachers and casted out demonic forces before. But hearing him, I could hear it, and just like his voice changed. I could hear the power in his voice, the assertiveness when he cast them right on out of the house, out of the neighborhood, out of Horry County, and commanded them back to the imps of hell with their master.
Wow. That's terrifying, and I could not even imagine.
I might have to move out. I know it's gone, but still.
Yeah, I would have to probably leave. Is that your current house?
That's the current house that I live in.
Wow.
Now, how something demonic got in there, I don't know. Because as a child, when I was there, I never felt anything bad. Like when it would come to me, I never felt anything bad. You know how you get a smell?
Yep.
My grandma dipped society snuff dust. I could smell her just as plain as day. Sometimes, and then like my dad, I've felt my dad in there before. I've woke up, and my room isn't an extra part that was built on.
Right.
So, you have to have like an extra little heater or air conditioner in there for some extra in the summer, or in the dead heat of the summer or winter. And so I've woke up in there like with a little kerosene heater in there before, and you feel like somebody's standing over you. So I wake up and I just open my eyes, but from the light of the kerosene heater, I could see a shadow on my wall where somebody was standing behind me.
Oh, wow.
Standing over me.
Now, did you have the black-eyed child experience or whatever it was before or after the preacher?
Before. It was before.
So interesting there.
So that was kind of like the catalyst. That's what brought that on, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. Well, that's interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you for chatting with us today.
Absolutely.
Tonight, this evening in the Buggy area.
I'm getting so
Yeah.
bitten up. I'm dying over here.
Y'all have anything else you want to add about spirit communication and no?
We covered a lot of it.
I do want to take a quick minute and say a huge thank you to all of our followers on all of our socials. You know, being only 7 months old, the love and support and positivity that we have received thus far has been absolutely amazing. So
Yes,
thank you guys for taking this journey with us. Also, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe across all of our socials. Check out this video over on our YouTube. Let us know if you guys spot anything during this episode. Other than bugs. Help us reach 1,000 followers on Facebook. We are, 28?
We're close.
28
like
followers away from reaching 100,000 or 100,000, reaching 1,000 followers on Facebook. And then
when we get to the 1,000 mark,
then we'll hit 10,000, 5,000.
No, when we get to the 1,000 mark, one lucky follower will be chosen.
Oh yeah, when we get to the 1,000 mark on Facebook, we will choose one follower to go on an investigation with us. And then also, if you guys have your own personal story of any paranormal experiences that you have, and it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be spirit. It can be cryptids. It can be UFOs, anything paranormal, and you'd like to share it, send us a message on Facebook, on Instagram, and we could share it right here on the podcast. Well, there y'all have it. Ouija boards. It's all about intention. Would you use it to communicate? Let us know. Until next time, y'all come back now, you hear?